Yeah, if possible, can the panelists open their video in the yeah, Ilan, you can start.
Good evening, all. Happy to see you all here in this evening. I'm Milan Jairan, an MTTS alumni and a PhD scholar at IIT Madras. I, together with Dr. Soumyade, a postdoctoral research fellow at IMSc, will be the moderators for today's panel discussion. I'm so excited about this insightful panel discussion, and now I invite Dr. Soumyade to introduce this panel discussion and the distinguished panel members to the audience. Over to you, Soumyade.
Yeah, thank you, Ilan. Hello, everyone. We welcome you to this panel discussion. As you might have already noticed, the title of today's discussion is Gauging the Future of Mathematics in India Beyond the Barriers. The goal of this event is to inform the audience about the challenges or issues faced by students and teachers of mathematics in India at various levels, and to have a discussion about possible solutions to some of the prime challenges which need immediate attention. In short, we want to understand some of the barriers ahead and figure out ways to go beyond the barriers. We are extremely fortunate to have with us 5 distinguished personalities as the panelists today. Professor Ramanujam, who is not yet here in this meeting, I hope he will join soon. He is a retired professor at the Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Chennai. Professor Habib, he is a professor at Shiv Nadar University, Greater Noida. Professor S. Kumaresan, he retired as a professor at the University of Hyderabad. Professor B. Sri Padmavati, she is a professor at the University of Hyderabad. And Professor Jugal K. Verma, he is a professor at IIT Bombay. Let me tell you about the format of this event. In the first 1 hour, we will hear from each of the panelists about their experiences in the field of mathematics education for about 10 minutes each. We would request them to tell us about some of the issues they have addressed so far and what they think needs to be done in order to overcome some of those challenges. Then in the next 1 hour, we will have a Q&A session where we shall ask some questions to the panelists. And in the later part of the event, if time permits, we plan to open the floor for questions from the audience if they have any. So this is the plan. As Professor Ramanujam is not yet here, I guess. Yeah, he's somehow not here. We will start with Professor Habib. Professor Habib is currently a professor at Shiv Nadar University. He did his PhD at the University of California, Berkeley. His research interests include representation theory and mathematical finance. He has been involved in efforts to make mathematics education at the school and college level more interesting and fulfilling through various initiatives. Professor Habib has contributed to the curricula and activities of several universities and also to the NCERT. He has been associated with MTTS for a long time. Professor Habib, I would request you to begin your speech.
Okay, thank you so much, and especially for the invitation to be here today and to be part of this panel. And it's lovely to see everyone, students, colleagues. Curry Leaf has really been wonderful. I was also attending your inauguration a little while ago, and of course, I've been keeping track of what you do on Facebook and have seen some of your videos. So it's just remarkable what you have done and what you are likely to do in the future. Okay, and so just thanks again for everything. And now about today's discussion, so the first question that was posed to us, that, 3 questions, and can you think about these? The first that you were asked to consider was which issues or challenges in mathematics education concerned us most. Now, the answer to this, of course, depends on the stage of our lives at which we think about this question. And also, it is difficult to answer this question or questions about how one approaches issues or dreams about the future of maths education without in some way plagiarizing from the work and vision of MTTS. But let me try and give a personal spin to that. Okay. Now, even as a student, from my very initial years in school, I knew that I was in a system that did not work for everyone. Now, I was personally privileged in many ways. First, my home was full of books and a general commitment to academic work. Second, I had a knack for the kind of work that gets you marks. And so my teachers liked me and the system treated me well. But many of my friends were not so fortunate. And I always wondered why the blame fell on them rather than on those responsible for nurturing them. So this has been one of my main concerns, the fate of the student who does not fit. And my desire is for school and university to change and become less narrow-minded in their conception of a good student or a good curriculum, and to take on a greater responsibility in taking care of the diverse students that we get. My worry is that over the last decade, we seem to be moving inexorably to education being controlled in fine details by government. And this centralization is not friendly to such concerns. Now, as a university teacher and administrator, I find myself grappling with the following specific issues. First, students enter an undergraduate mathematics program with varying levels of clarity about their eventual career, how mathematics relates to it, what is mathematical activity in the first place, as well as their personal commitment to this enterprise. With the pandemic, especially, school education has visibly suffered, and there is little doubt that the students entering university this year are not as well prepared as those in previous years. So they will need special care. Second, the interaction of students with the curriculum and instructors is much more varied than we planned for. From our vantage point, our curriculum may be comprehensive, balanced, and timely. But the student takes on each unit without knowing its place in the whole, and so may have a disjointed experience. Third, students can be transformed by the university experience and at exit may have a completely different set of ambitions that they did on entry. In fact, one duty of university is to make this possible. So corresponding to these thoughts, I split the tasks of undergraduate education into 3 stages. The first is handling the transition from school to university. This entails, of course, getting students accustomed to the increased expectations in terms of mathematical rigor, expression, hard work, and even ethics. And again, I sense and see that with the pandemic, students' idea of what it means to answer an assignment or to take an exam has changed. And at university, we are going to struggle with these changed ideas that students will be coming in with. Elements of school mathematics need to be firmed up and revisited, and also a vision of the future has to be provided. Along with all this, 2 complementary skills of independent study and working in teams have to be cultivated. So that's the first stage of the student entering the university and the work that we have to do, as a bridge to the future in roughly the first year of their study. Now, after that, in the next stage, it's about acquiring expertise in the core areas of modern mathematics. This common foundation would be useful for any path that the student may wish to follow, whether in academia or the real world. Now, in fact, most students will need to make a place for themselves outside academia, as there simply aren't enough jobs available in teaching or academic research. So that is another serious issue that we have to face while working for our students. In the third stage, once the transition is done and the basic undergraduate expertise is acquired, then one has to use elective courses, seminars, and projects to help students embark on their individual paths. And to facilitate this, it is important that we exercise restraint in what we consider core. Ideally, there would also be space to explore the connections of mathematics with other disciplines or even other disciplines just for their own sake. Uh, Now, along with these, this is talking more about the curriculum, but because students are individuals and your curriculum hits every student in a unique way, it's important that a lot of flexibility be built in and that students be given second chances, as well as the possibility of tweaking the sequencing and the content with the counseling of the faculty members. Now, in my remaining time, let me describe how my university tries to tackle the first issue, just the first issue, about taking in students from school with diverse interests, diverse levels of expertise, or diverse levels of commitment and understanding of what is mathematics. Okay. Well, I think this will sound very familiar to everybody here, so it's not revolutionary. Okay, but it takes up maybe another issue that we can discuss briefly. So one course that we have is called Foundations, and this is an introduction to mathematical thinking and writing. It, emphasizes the concepts of axioms, of proof, familiarizes the student with the language of sets, functions, and relations, and the process of abstraction. So this is a one semester course, which is all about what it means to think and express mathematics and to argue mathematically. We have a course in calculus, which provides formal support to calculus. And by formal support, I mean that they do get to see epsilon delta, they get to see the completeness axiom, they get to see the basics of calculus done rigorously. But it doesn't become a full course in real analysis because it doesn't take up anything which is not directly concerned with the calculations and basic concepts of calculus. There's a course in linear algebra, which is done just in the context of finite dimensional vector spaces. So just think of it as a course on what you can do with Rn, and then with an emphasis on both the formal and the geometric aspects of linear algebra. And the fourth course is on mathematical modeling, which focuses on how real-world problems can be rephrased in the language of mathematics, leading to a better understanding and solution of these problems, as well as to further developments in mathematics. So with this group of courses, we hope to give students a fairly comprehensive view of what lies ahead, that right at the start, they should get a clear picture of what they are in for, what are the potentials, but also what they might find difficult. And so to make an early commitment to taking on these things. One of the problems that one faces is that often students come to college with a warped idea of what mathematics is about. Right? They think it's all about, say, doing calculations and maybe doing tricky calculations, the kind that you do in JEE coaching. So when they come to their first real course in real analysis or abstract algebra, usually in the second year, this can be quite traumatic for many students. And at that point, many of them may regret that they have taken up mathematics at all. One of the things that I found depressing when I first took up undergraduate teaching was students telling me that they loved mathematics in school, but in college, they were beginning to hate it. To me, it was not exactly the opposite, but near to the opposite. And so that students were actually feeling like this was actually very alarming and depressing for me. So what we are hoping to do is that, do get an idea early on what you are in for, but, with some moderation and with a lot of help so that you start building up towards the later abstractions right from the start. At the same time, many students come to mathematics with an interest in applications because of its importance to the world. And the modeling course caters to these students, it gives them something to do as well, and keeps, and also maybe helps them see that the formal things that they are beginning to see are not just to make their lives miserable, but actually help deal with the real world problems as well. And in this aspect, it is worth noting that an increasing number of students now give data science and machine learning as the reason for taking up mathematics. Now, they may not know anything about these subjects as yet when they join, but they have heard about them, and they have been sold on what they have heard, and it has led them to take up mathematics. And so once they are in, these things have to be taken into account, right? How maybe help them understand what this really means, but this can't be ignored. We have to see how to deal with these desires of modern students. Okay, maybe let me say a few words about what MTTS has meant to me here before I conclude. Yeah, it was said I've been engaged with it a long time, 20 odd years. And as I always say, it was a very interesting experience for me. As a PhD student, I was a teaching assistant for many semesters, and I had seen good people teach, and I had tried to be a good teacher in my own tutorials, and I thought I had a decent idea of what it means to be a good teacher. Nevertheless, my first go at teaching in MTTS was an eye opener, because what I saw was that one has some concept of what it is to be a good teacher, but maybe you have bits and pieces and you implement them in bits and pieces. And the eye-opening part was to see this done in such a comprehensive and dedicated way, without concession, without excuses and without concessions to the so-called real world and its constraints about syllabus, completing the syllabus, and what other people may think and things like that. And also the focus on really getting into the minds of the students as much as we can. So I remember that my very first class in MTTS, I thought I did a pretty good job. I had been told, that you must lead the students, not just lecture, bring them out, and I thought I had done that. Nevertheless, the feedback from one of my senior faculty at MTTS was, it was good, but you talked a little bit too much. So a little more attention on bringing out the students, more silences so that students have time to think. And so while I've been talking to you about our courses, but several of one of the issues is MTTS as a summer program, as special program. One of the questions that arises is, what is the extent to which you can do this in a normal institution with its various constraints and with its faculty and with all the students, not just the motivated students that have applied and have come to MTTS. And what I would like to say is that at SNU, I and several others have taken part as teachers in SNU. In fact, several of our faculty, few of our faculty have also been students at MTTS. And it has had a very strong influence on us and how we teach. So it's not just about the courses, it's also about what happens in the classroom and how we talk with the students. And I think I would like to say that based on that experience, it's definitely possible to take MTTS approach and MTTS ideas into the regular system. And in fact, the regular system benefits strongly by this in terms of the transition from school to university, in terms of getting the core mathematics done right. MTTS is a very strong example to us, and every one of us who has participated in MTTS, our regular teaching back at home has also improved due to that. Okay, let me stop here. I just overall wanted to give some sense of what it means to take on students as they come from school to university, and what are the issues we have to think about, and kind of the steps that we can take. Since I'm talking to an MTTS audience, I don't think I have to say too much. We all know what that activity is like. And the only thing is really to just go out and do it. That's basically what it boils down to. So let me stop here.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Habib, for your nice speech. Professor Ramanujam is here. Sir, can you please unmute and yeah. Yeah, hi.
Hello.
So,
Yeah.
So let me introduce Professor Ramanujam. Professor Ramanujam was a professor at the Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Chennai, from where he retired recently. He did his PhD in computer science from the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai. His research interests are in the areas of mathematical logic and the theory of computation, and their applications to theory of distributed systems, game theory, and security theory. He is the editor of Thulir, which is a monthly science magazine for children. He has been associated with it for a long time. Professor Ramanujam has been associated with the Tamil Nadu Science Forum since 1990. He was active in its involvement in science popularization and school children and school education. He was a member of the Yashpal committee that formulated the National Curriculum Framework 2005. He chaired the National Focus Group on Teaching of Mathematics, NCERT. Currently, he is the president of the Mathematics Teachers Association in India. He is also a recipient of the prestigious Indira Gandhi Prize for Popularization of Science in 2020. Yeah, Professor Ramanujam, I would request you to tell us about your experience.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Is my audio okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, sorry for coming in late. I had some problems. Yeah. Firstly, thanks for this wonderful opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here in this discussion, and especially in this forum of MTTS alumni. As Ambar was just saying, the MTTS audience doesn't really need to be told about what doing mathematics really means. And let me start with that. I want to talk about the problems in particular related to school education. And I think the fundamental problem is when it comes to school education is the disconnect between what we would call doing mathematics and what passes for learning mathematics in school. So there are several issues that I want to highlight, but the first and perhaps the most important one is that the learning of mathematics in school, as we understand it and we learn, is only, if you ask any teacher, what are you teaching? It's algebra, arithmetic, algebra, geometry, data handling. Now, these are all trigonometry, and towards the end, calculus. Now, when we look at the history of education, perhaps the oldest is mathematics education, right? I mean, and the content areas of mathematics being arithmetic, algebra, geometry, mensuration, data handling, trigonometry. I mean, this is hundreds of years old, right? So there's nothing much to say in that. But what is a major problem is actually, if you look at it, the curriculum really dates back to the Industrial Revolution, and the mathematics education curriculum as it emerged in Europe during the Industrial Revolution pretty much is what we see today. In fact, there is a big debate in the 19 teens, 1915 to 1920, roughly in the UK, about what sort of mathematics education is needed. And there is a tussle between the more abstract mathematics, which is the sort of thing that continental Europe, especially France and Germany, were teaching its children, and the more calculus-oriented education, more technical engineering-oriented education that was being promoted by several. And this was kind of a very serious fight. Which way should mathematics go? And as it happened in the UK, the orientation towards calculus, looking at calculus as a kind of endpoint of secondary mathematics before you enter the university, this orientation really, let me say, won the day. And that was around the time mass education was happening in India, and textbooks were being written. And in fact, these textbooks were imported en masse from the UK, and they became the, and more or less, that's the kind of education that we have till today. So if you look at it, higher secondary has the calculus, and because you need to do calculus in 11th and 12th, you have to do certain kind of trigonometry in 9th and 10th. Because you have to do that, you have to do certain kind of algebra in a particular way. So it kind of works backwards. And of course, we all know, and we have seen during the pandemic, how important is the board exam for 12th, right? The whole country, I mean, newspapers publish stories about when the exams will be held, who gets how many marks. This is a huge national obsession of the middle class. So the board exams and the entrance exams, and especially mathematics in that, carries such a load. And the shadow of the board exam looms so long and large, that if you look at class 7 September quarterly exam in a school, not very different from board exam in its style and the way you ask questions. And I mean, one is a classroom exam with students that you know, and the other is a mass exam. But math exams tend to be pretty much the same. And in fact, one of my friends was doing research in math education. He was studying the math education in the 19th century. And through that, I got to look at some of the question papers asked in Madras University in its intermediate examinations in 1870s. And I must say that the +2 exam in today is not that much different from the. You might say that, of course, mathematics hasn't changed. So why should we? But then children have changed, the world has changed, our needs of our ways of looking at mathematics have changed. These are not reflected in the way. So I would say frontally, if you want to talk about problems of mathematics education at school, the board exam, right? And the predominance of the board exam in the competitive exams, and the way exams shape mathematics education. This is, I think, perhaps the biggest one. So unless there is some good examination reform, unless we move towards, what kind of assessment, and, removing classroom assessment from end of year examinations. And correspondingly, if you ask any school child what is problem solving, nobody understands the difference between problem solving and end of chapter exercises. So this, breaking that stranglehold, right? That problem solving is much more. It is, much more to do it than we can talk about it. I think we can discuss that. But it's not end of chapter exercises. It is not about illustrating a particular concept that has been introduced in the text. We need to do end of chapter exercises. They're extremely important. It's the only way to negotiate the subject. But that is not the same as problem solving of various kinds. Right? So this is one fundamental thing that I want to place. Now, if we look at the future, Soumya in his letter said, we should talk about the problems of the future. And now, I would say, now, who knows what will happen in the future? One thing that's very clear that I see as a major problem coming up is what I would call the pedagogy market, right? And right now, I think I don't know if IPL cricket is going on. Okay, some cricket is going on there, and you will find Byju's, and you will find various platforms, sponsoring, I don't know, hundreds of crores, thousands of crores for these things, and so now in the pedagogy market, right? Mathematics is one of those that is very, very lucrative. In fact, we have one in IMSc. We've always had these annual programs for undergraduate students, and we have one session called Prospects, where we talk about, for if you do bachelor's in mathematics, what are the kind of future jobs available. And I usually say one of the great things about doing mathematics is that you'll never starve. if nothing else, you can do +2 coaching and probably you make a lot more money than any mathematician anyway, right? And this seems to be true anywhere in the world. You can go to Somalia or the United States or or to Australia or Africa. It doesn't matter. You can always teach mathematics to scared teenagers and make money. But the market has really figured this out, right? And now, especially with the advent of digital technology, right? What is happening here? Now, that kind of disruption, that what it means, right? Outside schools, outside textbooks, the tremendous pressure. Now, this adds one more thing for the urban middle class, right? I mean, where tuition time for mathematics is one of the things that you see. Literally millions of children go through that, and that is not. It is about as different from what you call mathematics in your MTTS session, right? I mean, there is no comparison at all between what we call doing mathematics and that entire coaching thing. Now, I would say that what these things are going to mean, because this brings coaching to through digital technology, very, very powerful modes of coaching, not teaching, not doing mathematics. It is not about exploration. It is not about discovery. It is about coaching of a particular kind. What that means for our education, we will have to see. We are just beginning to see these are early days. On the other hand, the tremendous potential of technology. I mean, when you learn to work with GeoGebra or Mathigon, these things, I don't know too much about educational technology, but whatever potential I have seen, especially of the ones that I'm mentioning, like GeoGebra or Mathigon or these, the kind of exploration potential in them is phenomenal, right? So are we going to be able to make use of these for visualization? Visualization is a tremendous challenge in mathematics, right? And you can go to the best mathematicians, and if you take a cubic polynomial, and if I double the quadratic, degree 2 coefficient, how will the curve change? Very hard to think about such things. GeoGebra, it's a 10-second job, right? You can see how it goes, right? For many, many functions, it's very difficult to imagine the derivative, right? When you plot the graph, when you stretch it, when you see it, the kind of mathematical understanding it gives, we have not begun to even touch the surface of such possibilities, right? So on one hand, the potential of technology to transform education, not entirely, I mean, I think there is limits to it, but even identifying those limits, identifying exactly where we need it, right? I mean, for instance, for children, for very small children, to see that the number line is uniform, right? As you go deeper and deeper into the number line, it looks the same, right? That understanding of its structure, as you zoom in further and further, apps can show you that. Right? So I think in many, many areas, technology can play a vastly transformative influence. But on the other hand, I must say that if I see the use immediately, it's depressing. I mean, I think it's probably pushing in a completely another direction, right? So I think this is typical of what I would say, centrally ails Indian mathematics school education. And so on that, as I said, like I've always felt with school mathematics education, on one hand, the potential is vast. On the other hand, the threats are very real. Let me end with just marking one more thing, which is the role of universities and universities, but I'm talking about school education precisely because if we see that a large number of people who study mathematics go into math education in some way or the other, but mathematics pedagogy is not something that we take very seriously, and mathematics teaching as such, because learning calculus for oneself is not the same as learning calculus for teaching calculus. When you first learn linear algebra, you have to only think about yourself. You have to understand it. You have to go deep into it. But then you must, when you revisit linear algebra for teaching, you get more insight, right? So that kind of way of looking, and there is a big disconnect between school mathematics and the discipline of mathematics. So much so that people say that these are different subjects altogether, right? Because university mathematics, what it deals with is such a different creature from, this is what Felix Klein calls the double discontinuity. A mathematics teacher, you learn some kind of mathematics in school. Then you go to university, you learn a very different kind of mathematics. And then you get back to school, so you have to deal with, negotiate things that you have completely forgotten. And mathematics has this particular character where you kick the ladder that you climb upon, because you learn certain techniques. After you have learned certain techniques, the older ones are completely redundant. Once you learn to integrate, it's very hard to even think of ways in which you had to do when you didn't know integration, right? When you've learned to sum infinite series, it's very hard to think of ways, but you have to if you work with children, right? And this is a fundamental problem that math teachers have to negotiate. Now, this has always been a problem, but the fact that unless we take mathematics pedagogy very seriously indeed, come up with techniques, give it priority as much as mathematical knowledge, right? And engage with it, give it importance, bring it as part of university curricula, bring it as discussions. If we remove education departments and mathematics departments, see it as jobs of different people, this problem is going to remain. I think mathematicians and mathematics at the universities also has to engage with mathematics pedagogy at all levels. And I think unless we bring that in, it will be very hard to make changes in school. So I think in terms of curriculum content, I think we can do a lot, but we are doing okay. It's pedagogy that is a tremendous challenge. And producing teachers and equipping teachers and giving teachers that kind of importance, recognition that they deserve. I think if we bring these in, I think the future of mathematics education would be bright indeed. Thank you very
much. Thank you, Professor Ramanujam, for sharing your experiences. We'll move to the next speaker. Professor S. Kumaresan retired as a professor of mathematics at the University of Hyderabad. He did his PhD from the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai. His research areas include global analysis, modern differential geometry, PDE problems in geometry. He is a recipient of the INSA Teachers Award. And as we all know, Professor Kumaresan founded the MTTS program and is currently the program director of MTTS. Yeah, sir. Could you please share your experiences?
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation and the introduction. Are you able to hear me well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think in the inaugural session, Ajit and Vikram spoke a lot about the MTTS program as such. So it will be a waste of your time as well as my time to talk about such things. So what I will do is I will just talk about what prompted this program to come out. Because there are a lot of things which I think some of the things were probed by the Kareli team, I think even before Kareli was formed, okay, in the series of interviews. But there are few things which, it depends upon the questions which are asked, because I am good at answering questions, not in giving lectures. Okay. So I would like people to ask me a lot of questions so that I can answer. But let's start with the beginning. The very basic idea was that ever since my BSc days, I found when I understood math so easily, why others struggled. Okay, even in high school it happened, but I didn't think I have much better idea about such things at the time. But in college days, I understood what really happened at BSc days. And this was really an eye opener. And it's anybody who wants to be in teaching profession should know. First, give credit to your audience. They are all intelligent. Don't think they're stupid. Okay. They may look stupid because they have not been initiated properly. Now, why are they struggling when you explain so well? And you do again and again, they repeat. I have seen. Okay, I have seen, and I have gone through many of my colleagues everywhere. And when you ask a question, they keep repeating whatever they did. Okay, maybe with a little more detail, or instead of speaking fast, trying to slow down their voice. Okay, their delivery. Okay, that's not going to achieve. I found out when I was teaching to my students real analysis at BSc level, to my BSc classmates rather, there is a mental block that you have to identify. And if you think that's very something strange only there, I will give certain instances. Even in one of the best institutes where I was working, one junior was having problem with the product measures, Fibonacci theorem, and various other things, the construction of sigma algebra, various things, product sigma. And the teacher who explained to him was a very good teacher, okay, at least lecture wise. I would not call it a teacher. Okay, there is a difference for me between a good lecturer and a teacher. Okay, he lectured well, and the students are bright, so they would have learned. But he didn't. When I probed, I found out very simple thing. Can you believe? It's one of the best institutes in the country, not one of the, perhaps people would like to say the best institute. The problem was, he thought every subset of a product, Cartesian product, is a product of subsets, period. Now you know that in MTTS level O, I take care of that. So once I understood that was his mental block, and I showed him this example, which I nowadays give in a foundation course. Then everything was clear. After that, he went ahead. He didn't need me. He didn't need anybody. See, this is the secret. So do not waste too much of time explaining that I'm a wonderful lecturer. I can explain everything. Try to identify where he has problem. It's like you have a pipe in which water is flowing, and you keep on pumping, but at the other end, water doesn't come. That means there is a block or there is a leakage. Try to identify instead of saying I will push more water. Okay, this is the basic thing. And second thing which I learned was, see, like all youngsters, you all have role models as teachers. And usually when you think of place, the teachers are teachers in the traditional sense, not in my sense. They are all very good lecturers. So when you think you want to be a teacher, you also try to emulate. So in the best institutes, I was running a lot of night seminars, and I gave wonderful lectures with very good examples. Okay, I'm always known for good examples and subtlety, etc. But I found still they have not learned that much as the kind of they did not reciprocate the kind of enthusiasm or the understanding which I expected of them. Then I found out the real reason. That's when I changed to completely interactive method. At every point, I made sure I started asking questions. I used to say you should be a partner in the crime. Okay, so you become part of this. Okay, we will investigate rather than I know the subject, I deliver. And this is one of the things which I find in almost all lectures and so-called various training schools, etc. Okay, many people just come prepared with a lot of very good set of notes and delivery and over. In fact, in some other things, some other participants came back and told me we found out only a certain students are doing well in such courses, and we always found they are from MTTS stream. The reason is they learn how to learn mathematics. MTTS teaches that. And the third thing I found is the kind of what you call a dictum: don't make mistakes. And math teachers are the worst. Okay, because in maths we always keep, we are proud of saying, if you give me a statement, either it has to be right or it is wrong. Either it's true or it's false. Okay, so that has got into some kind of psychological level. Okay, You have to learn, you should be ready to make mistakes. So I was the one who coined that, and MTTS is proud of repeating that. Making mistakes is your birthright. Okay, make mistakes, then only you learn. And each one of you in this audience, please go back. You think of anything which you learn. Can you be sure that you never made a mistake while learning? And if you think Galwa, Ramanujam, or what you call Gauss, okay, some of your heroes, I don't believe that. Even if they come, okay, put their hand on Bible or Quran or whatever your holy book and say, I never made a mistake. So you have to give the freedom to us. And why the students, that comes to the next point, because students usually is learn passively, because that's the way we teach. And they never ask questions. They never discuss mathematics, or forget about mathematics. Any subject which they learn, they should discuss with their peers, with their teachers, with their students. And when they study a book also, they should raise questions. They don't give a chance. Why don't they do it? Even a good student don't do that. They want to understand rather than ask questions. Why don't they do it? The simple reason is, as one would say, why you don't succeed is you are afraid of failure. You know, all management books and personality development books will tell you, okay, that many people do not succeed in life because they don't make attempts because they are afraid of failure. The same thing here too. So in MTTS, we allow the students to make mistakes, to discuss, and we allow them to open up. So these are the kind of things which really help MTTS evolve a lot of tricks to achieve these things. Okay. And when I submitted the proposal, see, there are two things which I want to talk about. Is sometime one should set the history proper, because once I go away, people will distort. Okay, because there are already people who say that there are few people who join and I kind of, Kumaresan snatched it and went away, etc. But that's not true. Okay, in 1988, I submitted the proposal to NBHM Development of Conference in DAE and Shakti Bhavan. Okay, when it came, which Ajit talked about in the inaugural session, and what they have in mind was the so-called ATM schools, analog is what they had in mind. That's when I said no. If at all you want to make, okay, amends, it has to start much early. And Ajit, for example, said after 3 years of teaching, I learned that I have to start with a level O. No, that's not true. I knew even beforehand. That's what I said. But one thing which I learned in my life is anything radical will be difficult to push through. So you're ready to compromise. So I compromised. I said, let's start at least third year BSc. Even then they wanted to say second year MSc. Okay, I pushed it down to first year MSc and final year BSc. Okay, that's one thing. And second thing, again, Ajit mentioned in the first few years of MTTS was a traditional sense, because there are other people involved, and each one of us, even in some of the training schools are running, they have a separate bifurcation. Okay, instruction hour, problem solving sessions. I find that's nonsense. Okay, because instruction itself should be problem solving. Anybody, please think about, you don't have to accept me. If you teach a proof of a big theorem, don't you think the theorem is the biggest problem? You are not solving that problem. So that is the way to learn. Then how did you solve that? Instead of giving line by line proof, you should make them think, what are the questions I should ask? This kind of thing. Okay. So coming back to, so I could not do anything. As I said, I was ready for compromise. I said, okay, let's keep. Okay. Algebra this morning and the afternoon algebra tutorial or whatever it is. Okay. Then one of the people went away. Then I took over completely. I said, you should be interactive completely. So when you want to do, you introduce a concept and give some problem, then and there students solve it, so that they know immediately how the result is used, how the definition is used, how the corollary is used there. Whereas if you do it some other time, you have to recall. Usually what happens is there will be a kind of PhD student who will be solving the problem or hoping to give hints and solve. I think Vikram is there. He has a lot of experience in this because one of the schools was the brainchild of somebody, my close friend. Anyway, let's not worry about. Okay, so these are the basic things, and there is a lot of that. One more thing which I found, this was when I joined. I just wanted to set the timer. I forgot. You just let me know when I'm exceeding my time. When I joined from some research institute to University of, then I found out there are a lot of students who had this problem, meaning they were not initiated properly. Okay, they were MSc students, but I have to teach them basic analysis, linear algebra, and till today, I don't think, except perhaps Cambridge and Oxford, can say what I'm going to say. A student who I have to teach basic real number system, basic linear algebra, etc. At the end of the second year, I was teaching Atiyah-Singer index theorem for Dirac operators. So this happened in my first 2 years. First year I joined, I found these students, I groomed them. The second year I was able to do that. That's when I thought it should be taken at a national level. Then I thought of my earlier proposal to NBHM in 1988. This happened in 1992. There were about 4-year gap already. So this told me that I had to do that. That was that opportune moment when these people came with the kind of the so-called PhD level, pre-PhD level preparation course. That's when I proposed this idea. And there is a second aspect MTTS tries to take care of is, I think Ramanujam just now said it. Some of the students say that I like mathematics at this level, but now I don't like it or some sort of thing. That is what I call disenchantment. And that's the problem is that, it's because of the quality of teaching. And there is another class of students whom I call late blossom. They are really good, but you are not told them that real beauty of mathematics. It's like saying a tiger who was brought by me, a pure vegetarian, will not know how to taste blood. Once it tastes, you know what it will do. Okay, so there are late blossoms. You give them, show them the beauty. Okay, you'll be surprised how soon they learn. Okay, MTTS takes care of these kinds of things. And there is a third thing, which is, in fact, in my original proposal, I wrote that, which I think more or less Ajit said it. I wish I had the proposal with me today. I said, unlike many of the elite institutes, I wrote as we, because there was giant proposal kind of thing, but I wrote it. We don't want to make it as a training camp only for elite students. We will take all students who want to learn, and depending upon their inherent potential and their effort, we will make them realize their potential. Okay. That way I said the entire spectrum will be covered. You have high school, higher secondary to university level and top research level, depending upon how prepared the students are, how innate ability and their effort they put, they can do that. Okay. So because many people now you can see it's very fashionable to, in fact, one of my best friends, okay, keeps saying up to school level, there is no problem teaching. The problem is the college level. Okay. So one has to improve college teaching, etc. Now, why do you think college teaching suffers then? That's because some people who are not taught well become college teachers. Okay. As one particular example I will give you. I want to make I found something very interesting. I want to make a photocopy. Okay. Unfortunately, the photocopy is already bad. So I make a copy. Now Ilanjaran finds it good. So he wants to make a copy from my copy. And after that, Jugal Verma finds it. He wants to make a copy from Ilanjaran. You know what will be the thing? This is what happens in teaching. Okay. So the MTTS takes care of the entire spectrum so that we make sure probably this teaching percolates down to various levels. In fact, I'm very proud and very happy to see some of the MTTS participants come and tell us, especially me also, sir, you teach like my teacher. Okay. So they don't know that. Then later they say, yeah, my teacher is your student. Okay. Anyway. So this is the thing. So these are the basic things. So in very many ways, I think MTTS has contributed to teaching. And it has taken care of a lot of problems which are. And I will just talk about only 2 points about future. One, Ramanujam already touched upon assessment. In fact, I find there is no problem with curriculum anywhere. Okay. Even the weakest college and weakest university, weakest state, okay, with weakest set of teachers, still both have a fantastic curriculum, because you simply have to copy from some good place. That's it. Okay, and talk about it. So what is wrong with curriculum? Curriculum is not wrong. So the problem with is delivery, teaching. MTTS tries to take care of it. That drives a lot of people in that direction. And second thing is, what is the root cause? In spite of that, even the best students don't learn properly. The root cause is exams. Everybody is worried about grade and exams. In spite of the fact we keep talking about, it's all beautiful. Okay, there are a lot of jargon, continuous assessment, etc., etc. But it doesn't really happen. Yet another assessment is yet another written exam of some kind. Okay, so that has to be changed. In fact, about 2 years ago, I was supposed to give a lecture at annual meeting of IMS, Indian Mathematical Society, but due to technical glitches, I couldn't deliver it properly. I plan to give some of my experiments in this direction, assessment, which can be adapted and which is a fantastic correlation, okay, between that. Okay, I mean, it's a kind of really good thing, and also it takes the fear of exams from the students. I will talk about it. I think I will, in collaboration with the MTTS, because I'm not a part of MTTS anymore, so MTTS trust anymore, okay, to be very precise. I will come up with a series of lectures about how to change the second level. So teaching, MTTS has taken care, MTTS will take care of assessments. It will give radical approaches. I hope it gets adapted in, let's say, in a decade or two. That will change. And second aspect is due to the so-called online teaching online mode, and because of pandemic. This one, I think we have done a lot of things. MTTS has done a lot of things, and I can take a lot of credit for that too. Okay. And as one of our, my close friends told me, this is a role model for everybody for online teaching. Okay. He insisted that we should write up the whole thing process in detail. I hope some of our colleagues are doing it. I do not know. And as I keep saying to the teachers also, the government has tested blood, how much you can save money by online teaching. Okay. And already, so my guess is within the next 5 years, 40% of the courses will be compulsorily online. In fact, somebody told me there is some circular from UGC to that effect. I am not very sure about that. Okay. So online teaching, people have to be taught how to do that. And next thing, I am going to come to the end of this. Just give me 2 more minutes, I'll finish. There are a lot of videos now. Almost all top universities like Harvard, MIT, and Cambridge, various things. Of course, IITs, okay, under some name, I don't remember, okay, NPTEL or something. They are producing a lot of videos. Most of them, of course, are lecture style. No problem. Okay, let it be. But students, how do they learn? Even with the personal teachers around, peer group around, they don't learn it properly. So why do you expect them to learn from these things? So in that way, they should be taught how to learn from videos also by watching videos. Okay. And in that direction, again, MTTS has taken steps. One of my friends and colleagues, Professor Sukumar has done some steps on this, and the results are really very, very exciting. Okay, so that should also be done. These are the for future. I hope I didn't exceed too much of my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your experiences, insights. The next panelist today will be Professor B. Sri Padmavati. Professor Padmavati is currently a professor of mathematics at the University of Hyderabad. She completed PhD from the University of Hyderabad. Her research interests include biometrics and biostatistics, generalized Lie theory, and fluid dynamics. She is the recipient of Ramanujam Memorial Award in Mathematics given by Ramanujam Mathematics Academy, Andhra Pradesh, for the year 2017. She has been a member of National Executive Committee of the Indian Women in Mathematics Initiative. Yeah, over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Curry Leaf team, for inviting me. Today, I'm going to talk about the IWM initiative. In fact, it is the IWM project that I'm associated with. So let me share my screen. Is it visible now?
Yeah, you can make it full screen, Control L.
Yes. Now?
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. So this is regarding the Indian Women in Mathematics Initiative. So some history regarding the IWM initiative. So towards the beginning of the new millennia, it was felt that a special focus was required to understand the concerns of women in mathematics, while the earlier attempts were limited to panel discussions in general conferences or as standalone events. Then we had this event, the International Congress of Mathematicians, hosted in the year 2010 in Hyderabad by the International Mathematics Union. And it was during the planning of ICM that another major event was planned, which was the first international conference of women mathematicians. So in fact, Professor Kumaresan here would remember, he in fact was a member of the EOC, which had planned this event. So as a preparation for this ICWM and to increase the awareness regarding concerns of women in mathematics in India, a conference was held at JNU Delhi with focus on women in mathematics. It was at that time that a collective of Indian mathematicians called Indian Women in Mathematics came into existence. So this was from the year 2009. With the objectives of encouraging more women to pursue higher education and research in mathematics, and to organize events and provide networking opportunities that will enable them to take up careers in mathematics. This international conference ICWM, the theme was focus of women in mathematics, and the aim of this was to have a conference in which awareness about current research in mathematics could be raised. The majority of participants were women. And here is a photograph of the inauguration of the ICWM at the University of Hyderabad campus. This is Professor Maria Mirzakhani, who was an invited lecturer in ICWM. And in the next ICM, she went on to win the Fields Medal, and she was the first women mathematician, as you know, to win this prestigious medal. So some of the issues related to women in mathematics were addressed in conferences which followed ICWM 2010. In fact, in 2012, there was a 3-day symposium at IMSc Chennai, where the aim was to provide exposure to young women students at all levels to mathematics in academia, industry, and business. Here, it was felt that outreach activities aimed at young women studying in smaller towns in India, programs aimed at college teachers and fostering their pedagogical skills, and networking opportunities for women mathematicians was very much needed. And it was also felt that there was a need to encourage research activities in mathematics departments by increasing the participation of women in conferences and workshops. So it was then that the National Board of Higher Mathematics, which has been the main funding agency for all previous initiatives, sanctioned a large project titled Indian Women in Mathematics. And this was to provide an umbrella for activities related to training and outreach for women mathematicians. And some of the goals of this project were women power generation, networking of women involved in teaching and research in mathematics, strengthening regional groups, and identifying leaders in these regions and showcasing role models, etc. And here is a list of some of the activities that took place after that. And in the year 2015, upon the suggestion of the National Board for Higher Mathematics, the IWM was reorganized to review and introduce new activities. Then a new National Executive Committee consisting of 13 mathematicians, of which 2 were men, was formed for planning the activities of IWM, and a website was created for IWM. Now we have an International Advisory Committee consisting of 4 members listed here. And we also have a National Executive Committee consisting of 14 members. And the members are listed here. And the chairperson is Professor Neela Nataraj from IIT Bombay. Now, during the period 2016 to 19, it was proposed that during each year there will be 3 activities. One is a 3-day conference and workshop, and then the second one would be 2 mini workshops of 1.5 days each, and then there would be visits and lectures by women mathematicians from both India and abroad. So it was called as the Visitors Program. And for several years, IWM organized a major annual conference in various regions of India, which featured invited talks by notable women mathematicians from India and abroad. And there would be contributed talks by early career researchers from across India, mostly to provide networking opportunities who are in their early stages of research or postgraduate studies. So here is a photograph of the annual conference, the first annual conference, which was held at University of Hyderabad in the year 2016. This is about the IWM regional workshops. It was felt that IWM's objectives can be better served if they were held at different parts of the country, by smaller workshops. And these smaller workshops are held in different parts of the country to achieve the objectives more effectively. And typically they are aimed at women of the region engaged in teaching or research, or working towards a PG degree in mathematics. This is a photograph of one of the regional workshops. I think this is at Guwahati. Then third activity was an overseas visitor program of IWM, and this is sponsored by NBHM and Committee for Women in Mathematics of the International Mathematics Union. And this was carried out to invite overseas mathematicians to give lectures and interact with the mathematics faculty and students at various Indian universities and also in non-metro towns. And this actually gave an opportunity to exchange mathematical ideas with these visiting mathematicians, and also an opportunity to see a woman with a successful career in mathematics as a role model in all these places that they visited. So here is a photograph of Professor Isabel Chandler's visit to India. This was at Vanasthali University. And this is Professor Nalini Joshi from University of Sydney, Australia, when she visited Maristella College in Vijayawada. So some of the regional mini workshops were held at various locations from 2016 onwards. They were held at IIT Guwahati, IIT Gandhinagar, Punjab University, ISER Bhopal, and Cochin University of Science and Technology, and also at Bhubaneswar, Mumbai, NIT Meghalaya, IIT Bhilai. The IWM annual conferences were held at University of Hyderabad, IISc, Shiv Nadar University, IIT Bombay, and IIT Dharwad. And the visitors program, from 2016 onwards, we had all these speakers from India and abroad who visited various universities and institutes, and also, as I mentioned, non-metro locations to give lectures and interact with the faculty and students in mathematics there. So these are in the year 2018, and these are in the years 19 and 20. So after this, for the period 2019 to 22, another 4 activities were proposed. As before, the 3 activities, that is the 3-day annual conference consisting of plenary talks, invited talks, mini courses, panel discussions, etc. That was one activity. And then the second activity was mini workshops of 1.5 day duration each at different regions in India. So this one is usually about 5 to 6 lectures delivered by some well-known mathematicians from different parts of the country. This also included a panel discussion and a poster session by young researchers, where they are given an opportunity to present their work and interact with senior mathematicians. So apart from these 2, and the visitors program, where we have established women mathematicians from India and abroad, delivering lectures in some of these institutions or in non-metro locations. We had one more activity, which is like a winter school. It's a mathematical workshop for young women. It's of 6 days duration, and this is actually meant for second-year undergraduates from across the country. And it envisaged lectures, tutorials, problem-solving sessions in 1 or 2 selected themes in mathematics. So this was a new activity that was included, and it was felt that there could be a follow-up workshop for some of the bright students who are picked up from these workshops. But there was some change due to the pandemic. I will talk about it a little later. So this is a IWM activities map, which shows the visitors program, regional workshop, annual conference, and winter schools at different locations in India. So some of the recent activities were the IWM follow-up mathematics workshop for young women at ISER Trivandrum, then the IWM regional workshop at IIT Bhilai, the IWM annual conference at Dharwad, IIT Dharwad, a winter school for women students in a hybrid mode in Manipal University, Jaipur. Then because of the pandemic, we could not actually have the overseas visitors program like before. Instead, we had all these lectures in an online mode, and we had professors Shihoko, Malvika Pramanik, Rekha Thomas, Susanna Tericini, Cheryl Prager, Nina Gupta. All these people gave talks in their subject and also talked about their mathematical journey. These are all recorded and available in a YouTube channel. You may visit this YouTube channel to watch these talks called the IWM Visitor Program Lecture Series. So the upcoming events are, there's one IWM mini course by Professor B.V. Limaye, the dates of which will be announced soon. Then we're going to have the IWM regional workshop at IIT Patna in December in an online mode. The IWM winter school for young women in mathematics will be at IIT Kanpur. This is also in December. The details of these are available in the IWM website. We are also planning an annual conference at Banasthali University in January, and there's also one lecture scheduled by Varadana Lanzani, Syracuse University, sometime in January or February, but the dates are yet to be announced. So some of the, if you want to look at the impact of these activities, what we found is that these annual conferences, they provided an opportunity for students and college and university teachers and early career researchers to come together to exchange mathematical ideas and share their views. And they also provided networking opportunities for many women delegates, especially those who are in their early stage of postgraduate studies or research. They also provided an opportunity to make contact with their colleagues, especially for these early career researchers, so that they would be able to network with them in short or long term. And the regional workshops, the impact of these was that and also of course the visitors program, they provided role models to early career women. They provided better exposure to good mathematics, and of course they also generated positive word of the mouth for the more region focused activities which are planned in their respective regions, etc. And the new activity, that is the workshop for young mathematicians, it had the main objective to prepare students for a master's in a good university or institution. Typically, it's for a second year undergraduate student with a follow-up activity for third year students, where it was aimed to develop the conceptual understanding of mathematics, encourage them to ask questions, and provide a mentor-mentee connections. So the goals of these workshops was actually to deepen and widen the participants' insights into mathematics. In fact, from the ISET Trivandrum workshop, a group of bright students, about 30 of them, were selected for a follow-up activity where they had a lot of tutorials, worksheets, after dinner problem solving sessions, etc. And the committee is in fact deliberating on whether to assign mentors who can provide them guidance through an online means. And similar connections can also be established for fresh postdocs and established researchers, so that they can find meaningful postdoctoral positions and get guidance. But of course, a sustainable model has to be developed, and some serious thought process has to go into this. Now, the challenges which lay ahead are to motivate young college women teachers to take up research in mathematics, to organize programs to motivate young women to take up mathematics as a career, and to convince senior mathematicians to mentor them, and also to provide travel grants, funds for women to attend international conferences or travel for research collaborations. I now want to show you the logo of Indian Women in Mathematics that was recently designed. So this, as you can see, actually is the basic concept is about connections and collaborations. So you can see the letters W and M here from Women and Mathematics, and it looks like it depicts two hands reaching out to each other. That means actually it depicts two hands coming together to make a connection. So this connection is at two levels. One is between women and mathematics, and the other is between women mathematicians. So this also stands for reaching out, for networking, for collaboration, togetherness, etc., which the organization exemplifies. So the colors also, as you can see, are the based on the Indian tricolors, which sort of reflect the Indianness. So I'd like to thank National Board for Higher Mathematics and Committee for Women in Mathematics IMU, and all the EC members of IWM who gave me their inputs to make this presentation. Incidentally, Professor Amber Habib is also a member of our National Executive Committee. So I'd like to thank him also in person. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your experiences and telling us about the IWM initiative. Our next speaker, panelist for today, is Professor Jugal K. Verma. Professor Verma is a professor of mathematics at IIT Bombay. He completed his PhD from Purdue University, USA. His area of research is in commutative algebra. He is a fellow of the National Academy of Sciences, Allahabad, and the Indian National Science Academy, New Delhi. Currently, he is the head of National Center for Mathematics. I welcome him to say a few words about his experience.
Thank you, Soumya. Let me share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
But do you see the full screen or just a minute?
Yeah, we see the full screen. Yeah.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Soumya, for giving me this opportunity to speak in this panel discussion. And I really appreciate the efforts of Curry Leaf to address the issues that we are all facing to develop mathematics at a national level, at school and college and university level. And let's hope that we will come out with some recommendations which can be taken forward. I will speak about the problems faced by PhD students and how the National Board for Higher Mathematics, IIT Bombay and TIFR got together to address these problems and formulate various programs under the aegis of National Center for Mathematics. Okay, so National Center for Mathematics, briefly I'll tell. It started in 2010 with a memorandum of understanding between IIT Bombay and TIFR and the National Board for Higher Mathematics playing a major role in funding the programs. The center, the genesis of the center really goes back to 2006. There was a discussion meeting at the National Institute of Advanced Study, Bangalore, and this was a discussion among many mathematicians. And they also discussed, just like we are discussing today, they discussed what it will take to develop mathematics in India, what are the interventions and what funding is required from the government. And they made several proposals. And one of the proposals was to start an institute which is suitable modification of the various institutes around the world, like the Oberwolfa or MSRI or CIRM or the Morningside Center in Beijing or the Banff Center in Canada. These institutes were independent institutes which organized workshops and conferences and gave opportunities to mathematicians to get together to do joint research. And we had no such institute in India. TIFR and some other institutes were playing host to visiting mathematicians and organizing various instruction schools. And many refresher courses for teachers were being organized at the university level. But the National Board for Higher Mathematics was of the opinion that we have to really get our act together and bring in quality and quantity, both quality and quantity of such activities. So, this recommendation was taken up by TIFR jointly with IIT Bombay, and this center, the National Center for Mathematics, was established. Certain activities of the which National Center for Mathematics organizes were already being organized by NBHM. There was a committee which was headed by Professor Ravi Kulkarni for many years. The idea really arose at a discussion in HRI, a similar discussion we had in HRI during an international conference and workshop. It was felt that activities of NBHM which are related to organizing instructional schools, they should be predictable and they should be organized, they should be planned a year in advance so that enough publicity can be done and many mathematicians can participate and many students can benefit. So a proposal was submitted first to the faculty of HRI, because Professor Kulkarni was the director at that point, and he tried to convince the faculty in HRI that HRI could become such a center which will give opportunities to students in universities and teachers to visit HRI during the vacation period and learn various courses, and HRI would invite mathematicians around the country to organize these courses, instruction schools. But this was rejected by the faculty, unfortunately. And then this team, basically consisting of Professor Kulkarni, myself, and A.R. Shastri, and Professor Inderveer Singh Pasi, we put together a proposal for DST instead. And I gave a presentation to DST of this proposal, and again DST rejected this proposal, saying that this is too advanced. It will not attract enough students and it's not practical. So, but fortunately, Professor Raghunathan was visiting HRI on the same day, and I met him in the evening, and he said that, what are you here for? And I told him that our proposal to organize instructional schools at a national level was rejected by DST, and he said that, why didn't you present it at NBHM? So then the next meeting of NBHM, I made this proposal with a few foundation schools and instructional schools, advanced instructional schools, and it was accepted. And we started with the 2 pilot programs called annual foundation schools to see what the response of university PhD student was. There was good response, and this program was expanded later. Until 2010, we were running close to 15 instructional schools of various kinds for teachers and for PhD students and for advanced researchers. So the program was taking shape, and NBHM thought that for the program to grow, we need to set up a center which will focus more on its organization and expand it. So a team from TIFR and IIT Bombay put together this proposal and presented to the Council of TIFR and the Board of Governors of IIT Bombay. Fortunately, in both the places, Dr. Anil Kakodkar was spearheading this proposal. He was supporting this in a big way, that we have to do something to develop mathematics at advanced level. It was passed enthusiastically, and the center was set up. The first head of the center was Professor Raghunathan, who served for 5 years, and the next head was Professor Balasubramaniam. The programs were generously funded by NBHM and a grant from DAE. The center has a Apex committee which consists of members from TIFR and IIT Bombay, and the chairman from a different institute. Currently, the chairman is Professor Ramdas. There is also an international advisory committee which advises us about how to formulate new programs or strengthen the existing programs. This is chaired by Dr. K. Vijay Raghavan, and there are other members, T.R. Ramdas, Ngo Bao Chow, Ellen Ino, and Chandrasekhar Khare, and Akshay Venkatesh. So right now it is focusing mostly on national programs, but there are plans for starting international programs. There are various kinds of programs to take care of special needs. So as I said, the annual foundation schools, they invite first year and second year PhD students to do basic courses in algebra, analysis, topology. It is still the problem in many universities, although there is a requirement of UGC that there should be 1 semester of coursework at PhD level. But we all know that university math departments are small departments, and they are already overloaded with various kinds of teaching at master's level and various examination work. And PhD courses cannot be offered in such a organized and predictable manner. And so the foundation schools, the aim is to strengthen their foundation so that whatever topic of research, they take up this knowledge gained in annual foundation schools is useful. We also have a program for college teachers and teachers at PG institutes, because many of them, they start teaching all kinds of courses which they might not have ever learned. So these programs, which are exclusive for college teachers mostly, they offer 1 week teaching, TEW program, which is for connections, pointing out connections between various fields of mathematics. And there are regular courses for teachers, which are 2-week-long programs where a semester-long course is offered, so that the teachers can come to these programs and learn a course and go back to their college and teach it with a confidence. The foundation schools are by advanced instructional schools, where subjects which are relevant for research for the PhD students are taken up, and these instructional schools, they currently, before the pandemic, we used to offer about 10 such instructional schools in a 4-year cycle, where most of the major areas in mathematics which are pursued by research scholars around the country are taught at least once in 4 years. There are workshops which are meant for researchers of all ages, and these workshops, mathematics workshops, they expose participants to current areas of research. We have a program called Mathematical Panorama Lectures, which is very sporadic. It started after the ICM in a big way, but we are trying to revive it now. Because of lack of funding, the program was abandoned sometime. So far, the center has organized 304 such programs. We had a big break during the pandemic, and we are trying to recover and planning various activities next summer. Many activities next summer. The programs, NCM is a virtual center, although there are plans to construct a building. So these are held in all parts of India, and I'm afraid there are a few states where we haven't done any such program. I think Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand and I think Nagaland, these are 3 states where we haven't done any program because of lack of connections. And, this is the plan for the building. The architect's plans are ready. The place is identified on the shores of Powell Lake. But however, because of various funding constraints by government, we are not able to start the construction. Okay. So this is, as I said, there are plans to introduce programs at international level where we have international speakers in areas in which we don't have, in emerging areas in mathematics where we don't have much expertise. So that by inviting international speakers, our graduate students can learn contemporary areas of research. So this is all that I wanted to say about NCM, and I think we should start interacting with the audience now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable comments. With this, we come to an end of the first part of this panel discussion. We would like to thank all the panelists for sharing their valuable comments and their experiences. We now move to the Q&A session, where we'll have some questions for all the panelists one by one, and maybe Ilancharan will start with the first one. Yeah.
It is great to hear the radical ideas and initiatives that are crucial at different levels of math education in India. And let me start with the first question. The first question is about the role of teacher. For a longer time, the role of a teacher has been moderating the course contents, the knowledge, and presenting it to the students in a customized way. With the advent of technologies and tools for personalized learning, how do you see the role of a teacher change in the next decade? To be more precise, on one hand, plenty of resources, even on higher topics in mathematics, have started coming up. Even the qualities are becoming better day by day. On the other hand, there are technologies that are evolving to provide personalized contents that will help that will assess a student's level and provide the content that is helpful for them. So where do you see the role of a teacher in the process of learning for a student? How do you see it changing? Does it change, or if yes, how does it change? I would like to hear from the panel members.
Is anyone taking this up?
Maybe Professor Habib, you can start.
So my always have mixed feelings about technology. I've always enjoyed playing with it. At the same time, when somebody sort of tries to force it on you, you sort of have an automatic negative reaction. So in this context, it's not, I mean, it's not clear that technology yet is anywhere near what it would need to be really for personalized attention to everybody. And in the immediate term, what I see is that with this 1.5 years of the pandemic, people are desperate to actually get away from the Zoom and the Teams and everything and get back into face-to-face contact with each other. And definitely, so right now, in our current state of technology as providing, means of communication mainly, and still having humans on the both sides, I mean, I think we can all see the things that we are missing in this. Whether technology can, I mean, technology keeps increasing. I don't want to say there are things it can't do, but I don't think we are right now anywhere near this business of, technology talking to a student, figuring out what's going on, and asking the right questions so that you will learn what's really going on with the students head, and you will, as Professor Kumaresan was saying, sort of unblock the pipe where the blockage is. Now maybe I just don't know enough about what people are working on in the background, but at least the things that I am aware of are nowhere near. And whenever I've sat in demonstrations of people saying this is what our technology can do, I have not come away very impressed by what they are saying. I mean, what they're actually able to do. And right now, it just seems, more of the coaching kind of and delivery of coaching kind of activities that are going on in that direction. Also in our country, when you say technology based, I think you immediately, and the more advanced the technology, the worse the problem, that you're immediately ruling out large portions of the population. So, I mean, there are small interesting experiments, genuine ones, on what you can do with mobile phones, and can you present something, and can you do something better than someone could do on a board. But even those to date are still fairly restricted. So there's also some work that I find genuine and encouraging. But that also I see right now as still being in the state of, I don't know, some germination kind of state, not anywhere near being a full thing. Has the teacher's role changed? I think yes, there is a view of the teacher as just a deliverer, but I think that has never been the view of what is a good teacher. The view of what is a good teacher has always been of someone who would engage with the students and would share not just content but ways of thinking and life philosophies. That has always been the view of what is a good teacher. And again, what is being proposed now, that your teacher will become a guide, I don't see that this is a new idea. This was always the idea that one had of what is a good teacher. Okay, now by now someone else should be ready to.
Shall I go? Okay. Yeah. So there are several things in this. I already mentioned my view on this technology and these aspects. I want to add some more. In fact, what Amber just said reminded me of something. I mean, and 3 years ago when I was talking about technology and these problems very similar to sort of things I was saying, the disruptive power and what it does for coaching, and then but all these. So, but in one of the positives that I did put in was about the possibility of technology for individualized attention and individualized learning. But then 2 years ago, I saw something very scary and frightening. So I am more, I would say, I'm always worried about these things now, much more so, because I saw this thing called Squirrel AI. I was in China, and China has this. By the way, this JEE that we have is nothing compared to the, the national examinations that the Chinese students go through. I mean, it's far more fiercely competitive. And then there is this Squirrel AI, which I saw, how they have these coaching centers for, again, mathematics for the national examination. And Squirrel AI does precisely that. It does individual attention. Okay, so it really follows the way you solved problems previously. It keeps track of these, and then it's suggests problems to you. And they are very proud of their record in the national examination. And in fact, one of the scariest videos I saw was how Squirrel AI is posed against a teacher who who's been teaching for 20 years or something like that, and his show that there are problems given, and the teacher is asked to say whether the student will get it right or wrong, and what do you think, and so on. And Squirrel AI gets it right much better, more percentage of the times than the teacher. Now, as I said, this is truly scary for me. I mean, I think we cannot take, the kind of disruptive potential for AI that lies ahead. I think we cannot be sanguine about this. I think what it can mean for, again, like Amber already pointed out, a huge percentage is outside all this. But we are still talking, lakhs and lakhs of people that are into this and what it means. That's why I mentioned the pedagogy market. That market is expanding at a very, very fast rate. It's crores of, the Jugal's 47 crore is pathetic. I mean, these guys are talking about probably 4,700 crores. I mean, right? So the power of these things are phenomenal. That doesn't mean that, I don't mean it in a defeatist sense, right? As Amber said, the meaning of true teaching has always been there, but this is for coaching that I said, right? So unless we, confront this whole exam-oriented way of doing, like this insidious connection between public examinations, entrance examinations, and all mathematics learning, right? Unless we break that, we are in for serious trouble. So this is one thing I want to say. And another is about, we tend to equate, and this is a terrible thing that I find with the education policy, in many policy documents, this equation of technology with the ICT. I mean, technology doesn't mean digital technology. There's good old, ruler and compass, right? I mean, let's not forget the geometry box, right? And there is technology and technology. I remember when we had this big floods in Chennai, working with a group of class 11 children into building tents, right? Designing tents, building them, and the amount of mathematical work involved in it when you start doing these things, optimization, trigonometry, what have you, So you can use the internet for information. In fact, I think there is no comparison to what the internet can provide when you need timely information, right? You can use maps, you can use a lot, you can bring mathematical knowledge. So we do not think of technology as working with our hands, working with material, wood, soil, metal, and that technology actually has, working like that involves a tremendous amount of mathematical thought and learning. So when we talk about integrating with technology and do, of course, this particular moment in time, digital technology is, of course, as I said, even scary in certain ways, and its potential is also there, but there is also technology as we have understood it. And an attitude to that in terms of science education and math education, we are very, very far away from that. I think these, I would say, so we must have a broader understanding of technology, deeper way of linking mathematics to, thought in many, many different directions. I think that's possible. What it means for teaching, I think, again with Amber, it is always what it is meant for teaching, and personal care and understanding students. And I think there is no comparison at all to. So if you mean genuine teaching, as Kumaresan was distinguishing between lecturing and teaching, if you're talking about instruction, if you're talking about that, well, and if it's providing information, if you just want to calculate, give something and say find the limit, Google can do all this for you. It'll do much better then, right? So providing information, I think we're going to move more and more away from those mechanistic information seeking style of teaching. That, in fact, Google is there to do a much better job than. Yeah. So I think, so this is perhaps an opportunity to restore, the true meaning of teaching to the process. Thanks.
Thanks for the point, sir. If Kumaresan sir wants to add some point, yeah, comments on this.
Yeah. Maybe we move to the next question. Yeah. Okay. So, So most of the faculty members in universities and institutes do not have prior training on how to teach when they join as a faculty. So their teaching skills are mostly self-built. Okay. Does some system should be in place for such a training? Of course, MTTS has some teacher training programs. And so when exactly, what is the right time to have this training? And what kinds of training should be given to the teachers? If Kumaresan sir can comment on that.
I'll just say the advice which I give to anybody who approaches me. I want to be a good teacher. Okay, that's a starting point. The advice is the following. You treat the audience with respect and you want them to learn. You don't want to prove that you are an expert in the subject. Okay, because what I find it many times is that anybody who takes a class, he wants to prove he's a master. He knows. Okay. So the attitude should change. The attitude is you don't want to prove you are a master. You are an expert. You want to communicate and make your audience, at least part of the audience, get enthusiastic about your subject. Okay. So the will to teach them, the will to communicate is more important than anything. Once if that will is there, depending upon his personality, the prospective teacher will find his own, devise his own methods and tools and tricks. Okay, there is nothing like, teaching methods at carved in stone. The willingness is to teach, to communicate so that the audience understand the thing and they become enthusiastic and they are ready to discuss something with you. If that is the attitude, I think anybody can become a good teacher. Nothing more. After that, he can, depending upon his own personality, he will develop his own methods for it. Okay. I don't think there is anything like this is a specific way of doing. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. For example, you talked about institutes, etc. I will go one by one. The top research institutes, okay, and everybody around me is also good. So I ought to say that I'm very good. Okay, I'm an expert in the subject. So it's a question of my proving myself rather than communicating the fantastic result I've proved or something. Okay, if at all I have to say, hype it up. Okay. And when it comes to other universities, etc., usually there is always a problem that you want to, you think if you don't prove you are an expert, the students may think you are weak. or you don't know the subject. That is not necessarily the case. Okay. If I write, as I keep saying, if I write 3 plus 4, or let's say 2 plus 3 equal to 6, okay, I expect my students to be intelligent. You should not think Kumaresan is an idiot. From the context, you should know when I wanted to write 2 times 3, I equal to 6, or maybe I want to write 2 plus 3, but in Hari I wrote as 5. Okay, the context should make sure what I meant there, rather than ascribing. So that kind of confidence the teacher should have. Just because I make some mistake doesn't mean I'm an idiot. And my students will think. If they think, it's fine. You should be ready to get over that. That's it. So the basic thing is you want to communicate and make your audience enthusiastic. That's the only mantra for anybody to become a good teacher. Everything else is a corollary. That's it. I'm through.
Thank you, sir. I have another question. So it's many of these students often ask this question. Maybe I would ask this to Professor J.K. Verma. So do you think that a regular master's program in India prepares a student for research? And what kind of preparedness do you expect from a master's student to venture into research? Also, do you think the current selection process or the interviews, okay, that we have for the PhD entrance program interviews or selection process, that really evaluates the preparedness for a student of research?
Yeah. So, of course, I have been teaching master's students at IIT Bombay for almost 30 years. And they are the students who come to IITs. They are selected after a very, very rigorous process through an entrance exam, through interview and all that. But when I meet them in a basic course like linear algebra or basic algebra, I find that their preparation is not really up to the mark. Most of the students, they come from a background where the syllabus is being covered through various means in a hurried way. The exam papers, if you look at the exam papers, they emphasize rote learning. This is true even now. When you can open the question papers of various institutes, the universities, and you will find that there is hardly any room for thinking during the examination. So because of the way the exam papers are prepared, the students also prepare in the similar way. They, in the school, mathematics is taught around problem solving. Students solve a lot of problems, but at college level, somehow this is abundant. Certain syllabus is being covered by the teacher. He comes to the class and gives the lecture, goes away. The students memorize and then they reproduce during the examination. And this really discourages most of the students, because mathematics is not like history where you can read and memorize and reproduce and can say that I have learned history. But so problem solving is completely de-emphasized, I think, even now in colleges and in many universities. Even at master's level, the similar style continues. So that the students who are coming from mathematics or any other subjects, they are good, but I think their training is not at all up to the level. So unless we change the examination pattern, I think Kumaresan was talking about assessment and how to organize the exams. I'll be interested in listening to his ideas about how to organize the exams. There has to be major reform. in the examination process, because our whole system is geared towards exams, whether it is JEE or, we are really obsessed with the examinations. And unless, and it has filtered down to some boards are conducting exams even at the 8th level. But when you see in advanced countries, there are no board examinations. There are no entrance tests. Okay, but because of the demand, huge demand for higher education and even in school education, we have to conduct the examination, because how do you select people? So there are problems to be solved. So we must reform the exam system in order to reform the learning process also. So when I see students in my class, I see this is a major lacuna in their training, that they don't solve problems, they don't contemplate over what they are learning. Okay. This has to change. Of course, the teacher, here the role of teacher comes in, and if teachers are empowered, I think this can change. Just as teachers in my institute are completely empowered, nobody tells them how to set the exam paper. Nobody tells them how to teach. There is a syllabus, but we are never told that you must complete the syllabus, because the teacher is setting up the examination paper. This is one of the root causes, that the teacher who is teaching is not setting up the examination paper. The paper comes from somewhere else. Some other teacher is setting up, and this I find very strange. So if the same teacher is allowed, I mean, the teacher should be respected, they should be believed, and the system should have faith in a teacher that he can set up an examination paper and grade the students in an honest way. We have to really come to that level at national level, that the teachers are respected, and the university administration should empower the teachers so that they can set up the question paper, and so that they know what the students know. And when they know what the students are supposed to know, they can set up a good question paper which tests their thinking. And so mathematics can be made interesting by intervention of the teacher. And I think this whole centralized system of big national examinations and the university conducting examination for thousands of colleges should go. No developed country in the world is doing that. Of course, China and India are exceptions because they are huge countries. But somehow we should develop a system so that the teachers are empowered to set up the examination papers. Of course, you can say do away with the exams, but that is not possible. Average students learn because there is a fear of failing, and so they will learn somehow, and they perform well. So examinations are going to stay, the teachers are going to stay. The earlier question was about the technology. And I think the technology really helps a poor student who is not able to, follow in the class. So, when I was attending courses, even in college in BITS Pilani, I would not understand everything in class. I had to rely on the lecture notes, which I would take in the class and go back and think about it. I think now, because of the technology, we have videos of lectures being made available to the students, and I have interacted with the students how they are learning during the pandemic, and they say that even during the normal times, if the videos are made available of the lectures, students who are not fast thinkers, who don't follow in the class, they can go back and they can look at the video at their own pace and learn. So I think we don't have to do with this new technology. It has served us well during the pandemic, and thank God that we had all these technological tools. Otherwise, we will be in times when universities closed during the plague, and of course, people like Newton, they discovered great things. But I think the education was completely stopped, and even for poor students in school, these 2 years are a great setback to education. but the technological tools have saved the education. But I think in the future, as Kumaresan said, that many courses will be online, and because of a lack of opportunities for everyone in such a large country, I think the technology is going to play a big role. One has to learn how to learn from the technological tools. The teachers are going to stay. I mean, the teachers are there even when universities were not there. Okay, so the teachers are going to stay, and it is, I must say, even with all these technological tools, it is impossible to learn without a teacher. There are people who can learn without a teacher. Of course, there are exceptions, but average students need a teacher when they are learning. Intervention from teacher is really needed on a daily basis to make progress. So teachers are going to stay, the technology is going to stay. We have to learn how to merge the two and learn in a better way.
Thank you, sir. If any of the other panelists would like to add something to it.
May I?
Yeah, please.
I just wanted to add that nothing can replace live interaction between a teacher and a student. Of course, technology, it will aid for sure. But there are a lot of students who have problems with language, and by virtue of being a girl, sometimes they're not encouraged enough in the family. All these things, you need a human touch to address these kind of problems. I do remember my maths teacher coming to my mother and telling her, let her study as much as she wants. She's a bright student. I think it certainly made a difference that she said this. So that, because my paternal aunts, I don't think anyone has done a post-graduation. And so I do feel very grateful to these teachers, who have said all these nice things. And I do remember one of my friends saying that when he came to the university, and one of the teachers said, consider an entuple. He had no clue what an entuple was, because he never heard this. And he really struggled a lot to understand what it is. So I think sometimes, it does help to have a teacher and student interact directly in a class. No amount of technology can replace that. And nowadays, the students are very smart. The really good ones, they do some online courses on their own, even which are not recommended by the teachers, out of their own interest. And there are free courses, there are courses with payment and all that. So there's something for everybody, those who can afford and those who cannot afford. But I think certainly, as Professor Jugal Verma said, it's been a good experience for all of us, despite the unfortunate experience of the pandemic, that we are adopting the technology in a very nice way. So I think it is probably going to change the way that mathematics will be taught, and I'm sure there will be many more workshops, conferences, which will be online than before. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, over to you, Ilanchiran, for the next question, maybe. Yeah.
So on the lines of what ma'am has said, like pandemic has created some irreversible changes on how education is important research is carried out. Then influences of technology, the positive influences is here to stay and evolve. With availability of digital tools, the training programs, workshops, conferences, and even some degree programs have become online now. And some of them will stay online even though we return to offline modes. In this scenario, what can be the role of government organizations like NBHM, NCM, like other members, and what kind of policies do you think that should be brought into place, considering the changes that are happening right now?
Amber, sir, would you like to add?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what kind of changes one wants is one thing, but I think it's clear the government anyway has a vision for what it wants, because you have to look at the national education policy. And following that, you have to look at what kind of letters the UGC has been writing to universities about what we should be doing. So, so let's see what the government wants us to do, because certainly, I guess those things will happen. And first of all, there is this notion of this academic bank of credit, so that whatever credits a student earns wherever they are studying will be stored centrally in a government database. And then a student can go out and take credit from other institutions outside of their home institution. And then those credits will also be saved in that database. And every institution will be forced to consider these external credits. I mean, okay. Let's say encouraged to consider these extra credits, and therefore a considerable amount of the studying that a student does could be done long distance through other institutions, not just where they are. And naturally, this has to be online. And I forget how much this is, whether it's a third or a fourth of what their total credits would be. So it's a considerable amount in any case. Uh, See, this goes back a long way. It's not just the current government; it's the previous government as well. The trouble is that if technology and such things were coming into play due to the desires of teachers, then it would be one thing, and one would feel much more positive about it. But in fact, it's coming from an external source, and that is what one worries, because then you don't have the control and you don't exactly know what's going to happen. And it's not necessarily that it is will be done to make things better. It could just be done to make things cheaper for the people who are spending money on education, on our salaries, and on university facilities and so forth. So this issue has been there, that see many of the problems that we talk about, the importance of exams, the overemphasis on exams, the 100% cutoffs in university admissions. Fundamentally, this is all coming from the fact that there aren't enough seats available in good institutions for students coming out of school, and probably this may repeat at higher levels. There may be the overall availability of seats is low, and the availability of seats that society considers good institutions is very low compared to the population looking for opportunities. So you want to increase these seats, and you want to increase them drastically. But that's if you do it in the natural way of having more universities or expanding the number of classrooms and teachers in your university, then you are committing to a very large expense. It's interesting that the national education policy, the original draft, actually put some numbers to this and required a commitment from government that they would increase the expenditure on education on that scale. But that was taken away. The final policy does not have those required commitments. Okay. So now, if that is so you want to do something, you want to have more students have access to higher education, but if you're not willing to spend the money in terms of expanding physical infrastructure and expanding the number of teachers that you have to keep up, then naturally you would look for the online mode, and you would look for prepared material so that the student just views the material, maybe has some minimal online testing and so forth, and has final online exams, and is taught in that way, right? And then if you're going to do this, see, one of the things that has to happen if you want to have this kind of system is that then the curricula across the country must be standardized, right? Because how else would a course studied from one institution make sense in terms of the curriculum of another institution? So the individuality of institutions has to be suppressed. You have to have a uniform curriculum all across. And so you see now much greater emphasis on that in the last decade or so. UGC earlier used to set first philosophical goals and maybe talk about or set guidelines, but right, so you had some element of okay, they have provided you a certain model that you can use, but these are guidelines. You can deviate, you can do your own thing. One institution handles students of one type, another institution handles students more of another type. They can do different things with them. Okay, this is no longer allowed. Right? Now, UGC doesn't give you guidelines; it gives you finished syllabi in detail and says that this is what you have to do. Okay, so either you have to fight UGC and ignore them and not do what they want, which puts you in a difficult situation. And most institutions would not be able to do this. They would just have to go along with the requirements. Okay. So I see a huge problem in this, that sure, technology maybe can do really nice things, but uh, is that the goal, or is the goal is just to do things on the cheap, and therefore then you have all sorts of other side effects which you have to live with, and I mean they are not just minor side effects.
Professor Ramanujam, you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you. I think Amber has articulated the point very, very well. I would just like to add here this recent note put out by the UGC on blended learning. And I think, academics and various kinds of academic bodies should react to this, because I think these are all going to become part of policy. Since you're talking about policy and what governments should do, these are things to be taken very seriously and to react to. But there is another dimension that I want to mention. If you're talking about policy, government, we should be thinking of this very, very large number who are completely outside all this. I mean, if we are talking about higher education, the first thing that hits you in this country is exclusion, 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 exclusion. I mean, we're not talking, what are we talking about? 25% of the population of that age of that particular higher education age participating in higher education. In states like Kerala, it's 40%. Tamil Nadu, it's over that. I mean, this is what we are talking about. Exclusion is huge in the country. So, and then you see the insidious connection. If you start talking about, if we actually start taking universalization seriously, the masses, their aspirations, they're wanting seriously. And if they start all coming into education in a big way, and if what you're going to offer is these online modes as an answer. Now, couple it with what Amber was talking about, these is ways of saving money and making it cheap and so on, right? Now you see the connection, and that I think is a very serious problem. So it becomes a way by which the state withdraws from its responsibility to provide quality education, right? So all this online stuff that you're talking about, this as the new norm, training and so on, what are we talking about? Are we talking about what percentage of the student population are we talking about, right? So in this country, if we forget those, I mean, remember we are talking about where government schools haven't even been, online, offline, nothing has been happening for a long time, right? Colleges, what has been happening for them? Who has had, I mean, people who have had no connectivity, no devices, no, I mean, a dedicated smartphone, laptop, what are we talking about, right? So, and DISC's own data tells you that, if you look at 2017 data, 2017 data tell you that, 40% of the college age population do not have any access to any of these devices. So I think there is something wrong if we even make it normal to talk like online will become this, online has become, etc., which means you are completely ignoring. Okay, we have a right to say many things, but when you talk about policy and the government, that's inexcusable, unacceptable, right? So I think bringing the focus back again and again to those who are deprived, I think it's extremely important. I know at one end we are talking about the IFR and IIT, we are talking about these institutions, we just talked about the one end. But I think if we keep, unless we keep reminding ourselves that is a huge country, there is, education, when we talk about all things matters related to education, that on matters of policy, I think there's no question at all. I think that has to be first, then only all the rest has to come. So I think inclusion, universalization are things to be taken very seriously. And remember, right to education is very recent in our country, right? Very, very recent. It's a 2012 Act, 21st century thing, right? So we have not yet got even used to the fact that there is right to education in the law of the land. So right to quality mathematics education should be seen as the right of every child from the poorest sections of society. So I don't mean this as just rhetoric. I'm only saying that in our language, we get into certain ways of thinking. But if we talk, you do want to ask policy, I think that's where we have to begin. So look at what education means for them. And like Amber said, educational opportunities for higher education, what it means has to be taken very seriously. And that cannot be done by giving all these options of online, offline, blended, mixed modes, whatever. I think that's running away from our responsibility.
I think Amber sir said something about the current policies and so on. And I understand that it's not about whether we bring policies and technologies or not. It's more about what is the fundamental principles that we stick to based on which we build our policies. And the fundamental values like inclusion and universalization should be the core thing. And we should start building about introducing technology from that perspective. Yeah, I think Padmavati want to add something. Yeah.
I think that two things should be affordable, if not free. One is healthcare, and the other is education. Education and healthcare, because people sell their properties almost to educate their children or to foot the hospital bills. These two things, I think somehow if they can, these two problems, if they can be addressed, I think a whole lot of good will happen in this country. See, in developed countries, okay, there may not be entrance exams, there may not be tests, but the fee for education is very, very high compared to what we have in India. But still, it's not really so low that everybody can study wherever they want. Education has become a business. So if that is addressed, I think it will do us all a lot of good.
I think Professor Kumaresan. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah. Just some generic remarks, what Professor Padmavati said. I think the real wealth of the nation, as I keep writing in I used to write, now Facebook, I'm away from that for last 6 months, is that education and health. And free education, free health, that is public education, public health, that is a real wealth. Till we have a government which thinks only dollar and money. Okay, now green bucks are now it's saffron bucks are the only wealth. Okay, things will not improve. Okay, that's an aside. But coming to the policy decision, as I said, even before any of you or even UGC started saying, I already said that the pandemic hit. Even before lockdown was announced, I started thinking about online things. I knew that it is going to happen. And at that time itself, I said that soon, once they have a taste, then they will enforce upon the teaching community, the institutions, to go online mode or hybrid mode, roughly about 60-40 or whatever it is. And that seems to be the policy of the government. But there are problems, as Ramanujam said, but I was a little away for a few minutes, so I do not know. It's not only the accessibility, even for those who can afford, whether it's available is a question. Just think about it carefully. Okay, Ramanujam had said, perhaps about, except for 25% of the people, 75% of the people don't even have access to mobile phone, internet, etc., or whatever it is, something similar. But what I'm saying is, even those who can afford, do they get it? Okay, this again brings to the point which I again mentioned in very many private talks, like when you think when lockdown was announced, I'm going little politics, but don't really understand politics. As usual, I teach mathematics with analogy. I'm also driving your point with analogy here. So no politics involved. If somebody is overhearing using Pegasus also, please understand, I'm not talking politics. Okay, what I am talking is the following. When complete lockdown was announced with 4-hour notice, the immediate thought for me was the daily wages. I wondered, what will you do? A guy who sells someone a thing, a guy who who sells vegetables or whatever, okay, or the auto rickshaw follows, all those people, all kind of daily wages, and the laborers who are migrant laborers. In Tamil Nadu, now 60% of the laborers are from Bihar and Orissa, that kind of thing. So I just started wondering about them. What will they do? In fact, I even thought of something. I'm sorry if I go a little further. I want to drive a point home. Okay. At that time, I said the following: the people who are ready to stand in their balcony and Thali Bajao will realize soon with their money, they will have problem. And in second wave, it happened. I had money. Okay. I couldn't find an ambulance to take me to hospital. Once I was there, I couldn't find a bed to be admitted. When I was admitted, I couldn't find medicines. Okay. And when I got the medicines, even after that I died, I couldn't find a crematorium to burn me. Please understand this. What I'm saying is, even with money, you can't do that. This happens in our country. For example, I'm sitting in the Class A city. Okay. And I'm paying through my nose. Okay. For internet. Okay. And half the time it's unstable connection is what I get. It's one of the, but with the same bandwidth in US with my son's place, okay, I was able to see the 4K TV, 4K movies with the same bandwidth. Okay, there it was 50 Mbps, whereas I'm paying for 75 Mbps here, but it's unstable connection. And what? So even for those 25%, it's a problem. And to just drive the point which Padmavati said, advanced countries, etc., New Jersey city is one of the heavily industrialized, most advanced, New Jersey state is the heavily industrialized, most advanced, one of the most advanced states in United States. Okay. And there the statistics said only about 22% have access to internet for online learning. So even with such a country, if it had happened, you can imagine in our country with something like 140 crore people, what kind of problem you'll have. So it's therefore, if at all the government wants to take a policy decision that it's going to be hybrid mode, it has to improve the infrastructure and make every village should have a free internet connectivity where students can, get a Wi-Fi freely and watch and do. That kind of thing should be ready. Okay. So if at all there is a policy decision, this is my request to the government. Please ensure free Wi-Fi with good data speed. Okay, that's it. I'm sorry, I just went too much into various things. Please remember, there is no politics. Okay, I just wanted to drive the analogy. Even with money, you can't do certain things, is what I'm going to say.
Probably this would be the last question from our side. Of course, we'll have some audience questions. Let me ask it. So we all know that mathematics is one of the toughest subjects among popularly it's like that. So math students at various levels face mental stress, and sometimes this affects their career. Okay. Are math departments across India sensitive about students' mental health? Is there a proper counseling mechanism in place in most of the institutions in India? And how could this mechanism be further improved?
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
I have been with universities for last 30 years. Okay, I had been rather. Now I am not with any university. And there is no such mechanism. But what I found is every department in the country has some teachers who are very considerate about these things. Okay, that is the greatest asset we have. So we should not worry about a counseling mechanism. I think that's all buckwash. And you will say, and court will order, and you will put a counselor, somebody with a PhD in clinical psychology or some such thing will become a counselor. Okay, they will only confuse you more. And most often, as you know, the highest suicide rate in advanced countries is by psychiatrists. Okay, I'm sorry to say such things, but the point is they're usually meaningless. Whereas a concerned teacher, a concerned human being will be more of a support to you than any kind of counseling. And that way, I think our country, what I would find, I would travel and visited a lot of countries, a lot of states, and a lot of institutions of various kinds. And what I find is every department seems to have at least one person, maybe more, who are very considerate to the needs of the students, who talk to the students, who, even though he is not his or her student, seeks that student out and talks to him or her and do the thing. That happens. That much I know. And this certainly happens. In so-called elitist institutes, there is a lot of depression due to this, and there is no way out. Okay. In fact, I quit my one of the institute where I was working just for the reason, because almost every youngster used to come to me for counseling, and I couldn't spend time on my research, so I just got out. Okay, so you can't expect that. The best thing is, find somebody who is ready to listen and talk to you. And this has nothing to do with mass or counseling. And by the way, I don't accept, and you are trying to guard your, kind of make a provision for your statement, Somya. Mathematics is the hardest subject. No. You wanted to say mathematics perceived to be the hardest subject by a general public. Yes, that's what you wanted to say. And you are trying to qualify that later. I understood that. Okay. But I think, again, somebody said something about it's not history, you can memorize and say that. History is not that. Okay, no subject is that. If you are ready to think, if you give me say history, I will show you how to teach history. Okay, there are also a lot of questions you have to understand. There are insightful things, questions you have to ask. You should be more inquisitive. Ask. It's not simply memorizing. Somebody came to power base. He's the third son of this, and he has so many concubines and so many things, and so many bastard children. Nothing. That's not history. History is something different. Okay, so every subject has its own intricacies, subtleties. Okay, so similarly mathematics. So mathematics is not the hardest subject. It's perceived to be hardest by the general population. Yes.
I just want to comment one thing. So in our Google form that we had for this panel discussion, we saw that there are lots of questions from students seeking questions like how to do research in mathematics, what are the prospects in going into a mathematics career. These kind of questions they're asking, many of them. So from this, it appears that there is no one in their departments who can help them with this, right? So from that perspective, I just thought there are not many people who can help them in their own departments with their questions. So,
may I add something?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Padma.
See, actually, what I feel is that it's not just that the teachers have to provide this kind of psychological support to the students. I find that even students are, not really very sensitive to their classmates. Sometimes there's a student who doesn't come to the class and there's nobody who knows what happened to him. I've found myself asking, where is this student, and heard them saying we don't know, and then they go and find that there's something wrong with him. So there's something that is lacking, some total lack of human values. I think we are only teaching youngsters to be ambitious, to learn mathematics, to compete with each other, but not to support each other. We also have to teach them to collaborate, not just compete with each other. I think that is one of the reasons that people are so, in need of this kind of an emotional support. And as Professor Kumaresan was saying, there will be some teachers that you may feel a personal rapport with. Just because there is a mentor that is assigned to you, you may or may not want to, talk about your problems to that mentor. So I certainly agree with Professor Kumaresan that there are, teachers who really are very sensitive to students and help them out with their problems. Thank you.
Yes, Professor Kumaresan, you want to say something?
Yeah. Perhaps I misunderstood your earlier questions, Soumya, because now you reformulated it again in terms of research, how to carry out, and various other kind of things. You see, there is again a golden rule, which I used to say where I used to work, the so-called the best institutes in the country. Usually, the teaching is given to young people. Whereas I said the teaching should be taught by the top people. It's a research institute. You want to tell them the people who are very active in research should teach. Okay. And they, of course, they should teach with passion. Most often, we can see the so-called people who are very active in research, the teaching is, they look down upon. They don't take interest in that. Okay. And so they just just before 10 minutes before the class, they prepare some notes and come and lecture something and finish it, and that's it. But on the other hand, the real people who are passionate, they will teach you. And if you have any mind, and I think I first read it about 30, 40 years ago. There is one guy called McCormick, and the Ford Motors was suffering because of the invasion of Japanese cars. Okay. Then he turned Ford Motors around and he made it again a brand name among America. And one of the things he said is about the management thing. He said is, if you want to teach, how to train a salesperson or train somebody, then the top person to teach it. Okay, for the kind of trainees. Okay, in HR department, usually should not give to somebody. Okay, this fellow is not doing well, so let him go and train him. No. He insisted on that. So whatever it is, okay, sales meaning the top salesperson to teach them, train them, and similarly in everything. He said that. Whereas if you put a second and third rate, it will not do the same. So coming to your question, because I answered it because I prepared that for what I'm going to say. So the best thing is the top researchers in the country should talk about such things. Okay. For example, there are certain interviews by Raghunathan, interviews by Narasimhan, which talk about their thing, how they get into what, etc. Those are the things which really give you an idea. Okay. You cannot expect it from a college teacher to do that. Okay. Only thing is he can find out such things. If you want to, if the Kareli wants to do something about it, you hunt around. Okay. And mathematical intelligence has some few articles on them. They may even be available as a video somewhere. Hunt around. Make something like 10 or 15. Put it. You want to learn how to do research? Just watch these interviews. That will be more worthwhile. That's it.
Say something, Soumya?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah, so this is about your earlier question, not this question about how to do research. This is about the some students who don't do well and they need counseling, and our universities and institutes don't have a proper system. This is true. It is largely true. I want to just inform what my institute has been doing. There are, as you know, there are suicides in IITs. We all come to know through the newspapers. And this is, in recent times, it is decreasing because of certain interventions. It was on the rise. Every semester we would have 1 or 2 suicides, and some institutes had much more. But now it is decreasing because of an intervention done at the request of the government in all the IITs, that each IIT should have a counseling center. So there is a counseling center which is run by faculty and counselors. Then at the institute level, we have a committee called Academic Rehabilitation Committee. So I don't know about other institutes, but our institute has taken a view that we do not want to throw a student out because of poor performance. Students, they find freedom. They find freedom after they struggle for several years to get into IIT. You all know they get burnt out. When they enter IIT, they become free, and some of them, they lose the sight of the real purpose they entered IITs. And since the courses are very demanding, there is a tough competition among students for good grades. Some students do suffer. They have real mental problems. They take to drugs. This is a reality. So academic rehabilitation committee was set up, and there are smaller committees at departmental level. We do have mechanisms to take care of these students by calling them regularly. We have mentorship programs in the hostels. Every student is associated with a mentor who is a senior student and who is a kind soul. He is interested in listening to others. Many students, they want somebody to listen to their problems. They are young, they don't know how to solve their problems. So this mentorship program, which is a very large scale program in our institute, has really brought down the suicide rate. So there are all these interventions which have helped. But I must say that many more things can be done. For example, when I was studying at Purdue, there was a program for weak students in mathematics. That is, students who are in engineering, but they are failing in math courses. So because of that, they were not able to make any advance in their studies. But the university doesn't want to throw students. So they start extra help sessions for poor students, those students who need extra help. We have tutorials, we have lectures, we have office hours, but some students, because of various reasons, they need extra help. And so this very organized system where there is extra help available at any time of the day, on any weekday, extra help is available. The TAs are assigned who sit in their rooms, and students can go and ask their questions and get personal attention. So large number of teaching assistants are employed to help poor students. So I think if such a thing is done, students will really benefit. We do know that there are poor students, poor for various reasons. I mean, poor performing students, they may not be poor as such, but they need help. And such a help should be provided in a systematic way by using the students who are good at studies and who want to help. And so we, in IIT also, we have such help session where we pay the students. It is not a free service. We pay the students, that is the teaching assistants. They are paid on a monthly basis to help the poor students. And this has really helped. The failure rate has decreased quite a bit. We have very few students who are staying beyond 4 years now. Earlier, the rate was much higher. So, these interventions have really helped, and they have to be at various levels in various forms, so that students who enter higher education, they don't leave in the middle. I think of such a student who has to leave higher education in middle. Where can he go? I think most doors for him will be closed. So I really like this philosophy of my institute that we will not throw away the students. We will have slow learning programs for them. We will help them through mentorship programs, allow them to stay for even 2 years and 3 years, but somehow help them to complete their education. Once they complete their education, I think many more doors open to them. We believe students are capable, but because of various reasons, they are not able to perform, and they can be helped.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I just want to ask Amber, sir, about what is the situation in most of the colleges or universities? Is it the same? Some kind of counseling mechanism? Is it?
I think there
is
is
it in place?
There is an increasing awareness that this sort of thing should exist. People are doing it at maybe different levels of effectiveness. It's not easy to arrange so many counselors. IITs or a university like mine can maybe more easily arrange good counselors or getting good people from outside. But I think psychiatrists, psychologists, that's kind of, there are not so many good ones around, and or ones who are willing to serve in this particular manner. So that is a problem. But it is an important thing, and having some formal structures in place is quite helpful. Individual faculty members can do quite a bit, but there are always cases which cannot easily be resolved by them. There are even cases where casual advice may actually be a bit dangerous for the student. You don't really know what's going on in their life, and you don't have a proper understanding of what your advice can do. So maybe a little bit of some level of advising can be provided by individual faculty members, but it's better if beyond a certain level, they are actually able to direct them to better help. And also, it's not always, about finding some maths difficult or having some problem in the classroom that one can fix. It could actually be a medical issue, and it really needs someone else, someone equipped to deal with it, to look at it. And I think generally in society, there is a greater awareness of these things among students also. And so now these things are really expected of institutions, and we have to step up and provide them. And I have seen it make a difference for several students at my university, maths and non-maths. Several students whose career at the university has been saved by this kind of support. And several students saved by faculty alone, but several saved not purely by faculty, but by the professional counselors that we have.
I was just wondering if such a mechanism can be developed online for all the universities and institutes. There will be a central team. Whenever there is some problem with some of the students, the institutes or universities can channel them, and that team will look after them, the students, talk to them.
I mean, I don't know. The thing is, if you do it properly within the university, there's enough work in any university for one good team, for a team of several people. I mean, especially if it's a residential university. When universities which are mainly dealing with day scholars may not feel so compelled to take up these issues. But if you have students in a hostel, really they are with you full time. They're completely your responsibility. You have to provide this. So I don't know. I mean, maybe such a team could help institutions which are not immediately or themselves able to provide this. But what I feel is, again, actually, I mean, it would have to be a huge team. It could not be a small team. And I really don't know how well this thing would work long distance. We have enough problems with teaching maths at a distance. I don't know really if such issues can be handled at a distance. Face-to-face time is unavoidable. That is needed for this.
Yeah. Maybe we will.
No. Kumaresan sir raised hand.
Kumaresan raised
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say something which briefly was touched upon by Amber. So I just removed it. But Now that you had asked me, I would say, see, when Jugal was talking, essentially was talking about academically, not so performing students, how to counsel. That's correct. But then there is another category which is essentially medical, because I have been dealing with this ever since my university days. Somehow, for some strange reason, a lot of such trouble. I mean, students with trouble always consulted me, so I know that there. So people should be aware there are certain cases which are really medical cases. What do I mean medical cases? Is not even, again, psychiatrists cannot help. Let me be very clear about that. See, all of you should know there is what they call, happy mode endorphins. Okay, there are certain hormones which are called endorphins, which kind of give you a good feeling of, good or whatever, well-being, etc. And what I find is there are certain, these students have problem. Their bodies does not produce. So they have to be on those medicines forever. Like, hypothyroid people have to take thyroid supplement. Like that, they have to take. So those, and invariably you will find, because at least in one that, in where I served for about 17 years in a top institute, every year there was some problem of this kind all the time. I found that all had only this problem thing. So they have to take hormone supplement, and if they stop, okay, then it tapers down after a month or two. Then again they will have problem, either depression, suicidal tendency, or violent, whatever. Okay, hallucinations and various kinds of stuff, or persecution come. They develop all such things. So if you are interested in helping students, counseling students, keep that in mind. Okay, there may be real medical cases. So don't think by talking nicely, okay, you will help them and they will come out of that. It will be very, very, very temporary. It will not even last a few hours. Okay, I just wanted to caution you about that. That's it.
Yeah, Ilan, can we're already out of time. Yeah. Can we end this with at least one audience question? I guess Chaitanya wanted to ask one question. Are you here, Chaitanya?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to ask that, especially I know about my region, that in my region, students in high school skip taking mathematics. Instead of that, they choose the PCB group. They avoid PCM group. And this PCM group students are decreasing drastically since last 4 or 5 years. So how can we, as the students of mathematics, can inspire others to take up mathematics as their subject? They are quite afraid that 10th tak to maths kar liya, that is fine, but how are we going to deal with 11th and 12th level maths? Or if at all we are done with it, how are we going to do the undergraduate or postgraduate level maths? So how can we deal with them?
May I answer?
Yes, sir, please.
I think you should not worry about such thing.
Okay.
Because see, in any country, especially a developing country, the first thing, education is a road to prosperity, some kind of livelihood. So that is the paramount concern for anybody, parents and students. So whatever is the society demands and dynamics, that's how they will go for it. Okay. So if you think that by giving them nice pictures and thing and taking good stories, okay, how Gauss at the age of 4, some to have 1 to few hundred, etc. Okay, it's not going to help them to take up mathematics. When it will take is only when there is a society certain level of affluence. That's what you can see in advanced countries also. There is certain level of affluence. Then they know with whatever I have learned, I can make a decent livelihood. Then I will take to anything. That's why you can see people, they are taking like, arts, this and that, various kinds of stuff, because they know even with that they can make a decent living, they can live happily ever after. So till that kind of period comes, you should not aspire. And the same, then you will ask, well, all students, for example, last 2 decades, everybody went only for engineering. Okay. Especially all South Indian states never got good students for science stream. Yeah. Am I right? All of you know that. So what do? And the only reason why West Bengal still produces theoretical scientists is because there are not enough engineering colleges there. Otherwise, they would have done that. Okay. So this is the social dynamics. You have to accept it, part of life. It's a very pessimistic art, but then it's realistic.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question from the audience?
Chandra sir.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Good evening, all. It's already late, so I will just shorten my question. See, even today, in many colleges and universities, there are classes, math classes with more than 100 students. And I don't think teaching 100 students with mathematical concepts, it's a good idea, but this is reality. And this is also, there is one more negative side of it. And with 100 students for a program, the number of teachers is also less in each university and colleges like that. And now recently, this past 10 years or so, something like this, or within that time, because after I joined for a job, okay, in a university, I could see that there is a tendency to allot funds, create vacancy for faculty position. Everything is going to depend on NARF ranking or this NAC accreditation. But whereas if you are going to do that, then the better institutes or the old institute which has more faculty and more infrastructure will keep on getting that, and they'll have more teachers to teach. And whereas the institute started newly, including IITs and NITs and other places, they're going to get less funding and less number of teachers to teach. So how is that going to help all the people? And if you see this, the elite institutes in this country are very few, and we have to actually support the remaining part. But I don't think this is happening. So I thought of opposing this and hearing comments from all the panelists here. Thank you.
Kumaresan sir?
Yeah, it looks that, I am the harbinger of bad messages again and again. Chandrasekharan,
yes, sir.
You saw in the pandemic who got rich across the world.
Education people.
No, rich people got richer,
yes,
whereas poor people suffered.
Yes.
Okay, that is the law of the land. No, it's land meaning not our country. It's a global phenomenon. And again, as you know from race horses theory, the successful horses are always given more handicap. They are supposed to slow down, whereas here it's other way around. They are given more monetary incentives. Okay, and there is it's in some sense it's supposed to be some kind of an incentive, but on the other hand, it becomes a disincentive for people because it's not taking the reality into consideration. It's like saying that you want to compare somebody who has all the facilities and doing better work and with somebody who has a lot of other stupid responsibilities and he is unable to carry out what is expected of him. Okay, therefore he is going to get less funds, whereas the other guy, first guy, is going to keep getting better and more funds. I do not know whether there is any way out unless there is some kind of a kind of humanitarian consideration also is taken care. There should be a balance. Like the same way I'm on the reservation and what is called positive So what is the US word? Ramanujam, what is the US word?
Affirmative action.
Affirmative action, right? Some such thing should be taken. That is along with, okay, you give incentive to people who are performing better, and at the same time, you encourage other people. That encouragement should be there. That should be a policy decision. That should come from the top, meaning government and all the experts. Whereas what happens is, the government goes by the experts panel. The experts panel essentially already people who are from the successful grade. So they will keep saying, only you give it to us. So with the result, yeah, okay, a lot of money will come. Okay, today I will have an Apple monitor for 1.5 lakh rupees of 21 inches. And since the extra money is there, and the institute will tell me that, you know, we have to spend it, otherwise we won't get next year money. Then I will 1-year-old Apple monitor I will throw away and buy another one for 27 inches with a 2.25 lakh rupees. That's what happens in all the elitist institutes in this country. So this is a fact of life. Yeah. Now tell me any place where, I mean, all the elitist institute, none of them have Apple. And be it, yeah.
No, in fact,
no, I don't want. See, it's a kind of rhetorical question. I just want you to think about. Okay, I don't want to hear an answer. Okay, there are people from elitist institutes also here. Okay, you should know that. That's a fact of life. So, but government doesn't know. But then what happens? If I am a top person from here, when I go and sit, happens. For example, Professor Verma was talking about a very fantastic point, which I keep saying. What would be the fault? The teacher who taught the course should set the paper and correct it. Okay, maybe he's biased, maybe he's stupid, he's not good, whatever. Okay, make it as a policy decision. In the long run, good people will come. Okay, but whereas I saw in one of the central universities, whereas I was an academic council member, okay, 3 guys from the elitist institutes come and say the purpose should be set by others. I said, will you accept it for your institute? He said, we are different. If this is the kind of thuggery you see, how can you help it? Okay, I'm sorry, I got emotional because I asked them, will you do it? Okay, and they think they're different. See, this is the attitude they have now. Okay, so naturally you have to live with it. The only thing is, we hope that some kind of wisdom, as I said, there should be incentive category, there should be encouragement category. So the encouragement category should also be identified and given proper funding. But that's a policy decision. People like you should raise in various fora so that it will reach the ears of the people, academic people who are the creators of this trouble. It's not the government. Believe me, it's not the government. Because I have sat in too many committees in my life, I have seen it is the academic who are responsible for many of the wrong policies.
Yes, sir.
Ilan, what about now? It's time to wrap up this evening. It's already 8.
We took a lot of time than that. Hope the session was more insightful and there were nice discussions. Thanks a lot for your time. A lot of the ideas, though when you said they seemed radical, some of them felt very common sense in some angle to us, at least personally to me. And there are very insightful ideas that you have given for this panel discussion, and you have made the panel discussion more interesting. Hope it was same for the audience as well. Now over to Samyuda for the concluding remarks.
Yeah, I just want to say, thanks a lot to all the panelists for gifting us this evening with all your insights. We're really happy after organizing this panel discussion. Thanks a lot. And also thanks to the audience for joining us today. So this is the end of day 1 for this conference. And we'll meet tomorrow at 5 p.m. with 3 invited talks. I hope to see many of you there. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.